So what we're going to work on today is talking about something called congruent, okay? We talked about this yesterday. What does it mean for something to be congruent? Same size and same shape, okay? So we can't just say equal, okay? But congruence means same size and same shape, okay? So same size and same shape. Okay, so make sure you know that they're not just similar, but they're congruent. So that means the exact same size and the exact same shape. Okay, one of the ways that we can tell that things are congruent is by writing something called congruent statements. Okay, so you're going to see there's two figures in each one of the pictures, and it says triangle ABC, so ABC, and GHI are congruent. We want you to write congruent statements comparing the corresponding parts. Okay, so corresponding basically means the parts that match up with each other. Okay, so we need to match up the parts. Here, we need to, how many angles are in each triangle? 3. How many sides are in each triangle? 3. So we have to write what's called a congruent statement for every single angle that's similar or that's congruent and equal to each other, and for all the sides. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out A, which corner do you think A is congruent to? G, right here. Okay, so I'm going to use some different colors to show which ones are congruent or which ones are equal to each other. Which corner do you think that B is congruent to? B is with H. And which corner do you think that C is congruent to? I. So I'm going to use these different colors. Okay. Then we're actually going to write what are called congruent statements. Okay, so the first one I'm going to write is angle A. Help if I had a working pencil. Angle A. The way that we write congruent is an equal sign with like a little squiggly on top of it. Okay, that's called congruent. It's not equal, but it's congruent. A is congruent to which one? Angle G. And you have to write a statement just like that for all of the corners. Okay, so A is congruent to angle G. Which other ones are congruent? Angle B is congruent to angle H. And then the last one, angle C, is congruent to angle which one? Angle I. Now, you can also notice, just in case it had been flipped or anything, these are exactly in order. Okay, if you look at the first names, A goes with G, and that's what we wrote. The middle ones, B goes with H, and that's what we wrote. And C goes with I, and that's what we wrote. Okay, so just in case, and you're going to see one in just a minute that's kind of flipped around, so it's a little bit harder to tell, they go in exact order, just like that. Now we want to talk about the sides. Okay, so the way we write sides is AB, okay, AB, and we write a line above them. That means that's a side. So line AB is congruent to which ones? GH, and you have to go in that exact same order, okay? So I went from the pink corner to the green corner. Same thing here. Pink corner to green corner would be GH. And again, if you notice, the first two letters are congruent with the first two letters. Okay, so you can always go in that order as well. Now, what's the next one? If I wanted to go green to blue, BC, and you have to write the little line above it, that tells you that it's a line, is congruent to, how would you name this side? HI. Okay, so we went from green to blue, go green to blue, HI. And then the last side is which one? AC. So AC is congruent to which one? GI. Okay, so if I went from pink to blue, I have to do the same thing on this one. Pink to blue, GI. If you wrote it backwards, if you wrote IG, that would be wrong. Okay, they have to be written in that exact same order. That's fine. As long as they're written in the correct order, that's fine. Now, the last part of what we're doing here is I'm asking, how would you get from this picture to this picture? What type of transformation would you have to do? Can I rotate, reflect, or translate? Translate, okay? Now, if it's just a translation, there's nothing else, then you have to tell me exactly how to get from here to here. So yes, we are going to translate, but in which direction and how far?
5 down.
The way you do that is you want to take two corresponding parts. So let's say I'm looking at angle C. It corresponds with angle I. How would I get from C to I? Which steps would I have to take? And in which direction?
5 down.
You'd have to go down how far?
4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So translate 5. If you write units or if you don't write units, it's not a big deal. So translate 5 units down.
And 2.
And how far steps? 2 units. In which direction?
Right.
Right. Okay. So this whole thing is your answer. Okay. There's going to be a good amount of writing today. It should be pretty simple, but you do have to include a lot of details. Okay. So you do have to include all of those details. Questions on how I did that?
No.
Not too bad, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. Parallelograms, CAMP and SITE are congruent. Write congruent statements comparing the corresponding parts, okay? So these ones, they're like faced different ways. So the easiest way to start is start just like this. C goes with S. So C goes with S. Okay, so automatically you could write that congruent statement. Angle C is congruent to angle S. Then we're just going to kind of go around. So A would be congruent with which one? I, right. So the second one is congruent with the second one. So A goes with I. Write that statement. Angle A is congruent to angle I. What's my next one? The third one is M is congruent with which one? T. Okay, so angle M is congruent with angle T. And then the last one here, angle angle P is congruent with angle E. Okay, so angle P is congruent with angle E. I know that this looks like it's angle O, but that's actually 0, 0, so try to not let that mess you up. Now, the sides. How do I write which congruent or which sides are congruent? Can you give me one? CA is congruent, so the first two is congruent with which two? SI. So you could use just by their names, or you could go CA, so you know that's pink to green, is congruent with pink to green. Okay, so they have to go in the exact same order. What would be the next one? AM. So you're just kind of like following around. So CA is congruent with AM, so green to blue. How would you name that? Green to blue, I to T. Perfect. Great. Okay, then what's the next one? M to P. And that one's congruent with T to E. So you could either do this one of two ways. You could just be looking at like, okay, the last two are congruent with the last two, and you can just line them up like that. Or you could look at like colors basically. So blue to purple, blue to purple. Now, the one that's difficult is the last one. Okay, so I already did C to A to M, M to P. This last one can be a little bit confusing. So PC is congruent with which one? Purple to pink, E to S, right. Okay, so you just write them in order. And I usually just go like around the edge. Okay, now this one. This is a little confusing when you're trying to figure out what the transformation is. So if it's not something that's just obviously a slide or translation, the best way to do this is to actually use patty paper. Okay, so we want to figure out how do we get from this corner or from this shape to this shape. So what I would do is I would trace this with patty paper, okay, and you do want to make sure you put the origin there. And you can use patty paper if you need it. And then you want to figure out, you want to just color in one of the corners. Okay? So how do you think you could change this figure to get it down to there? Do you think you're going to have to rotate it, reflect it, or translate it? Rotate. Okay? What type of rotation would you have to do? A 180. Does it matter which way you go, if you go clockwise or counterclockwise? No. So 180. Oh, did that work? That didn't quite work, right? Do another one. Did that work?
No.
So what did you mean? So it's not a 180. Could you do...
You can translate it later.
You might have to do two parts. So what did you notice as I was sliding that around? Did one of them almost work?
Yeah.
If I rotated just one turn
And then translate.
and then translate down. Okay, so if you rotate just one turn, that's how many degrees? 90. And which direction did I have to go? Counterclockwise. So rotation 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay, counterclockwise is to the left. Then translate down. Okay, now on something like number 1 where it's just a translation, I want the actual number. So I want you to tell me how many spaces you would have to move. If you're doing 2 parts, then I'm okay with just saying translate for the second part. You don't have to count and tell me exactly how many spaces you would move. Okay, so patty paper is usually going to be the easiest way to do things because you can kind of manipulate it and figure out, like, okay, if I reflect it, that's not going to match up, okay? So you can usually figure out kind of which way you have to move things. Okay, any questions on how I did that one? Does that make sense? Yeah. Hopefully. Okay, and then last one for notes today. Triangles LMN and XYZ are congruent. Write the congruent statements. Okay, so first we're going to start with, now this one looks a little bit confusing, so that's why you want to look at L. We know that L goes with this first one, so L goes with X. So angle L is congruent to angle X. The next one, the middle's M, is congruent with angle Y. So angle M is congruent to angle Y. And then the last one, this one probably would have been the easiest to figure out because it's the right angle. N is congruent to angle Z. Angle N is congruent to angle Z. Then can anyone give me a congruent statement for the sides? LM, so the first two is congruent to XY, right? Its first two. Then the second two, so MN, is congruent to which two? YZ. And then the last one's always kind of the hardest. So LM, we did this side. We did this side. How would you write this side?
NL equals 2.
NL is congruent to which two? NL, so that was blue-pink, is congruent to which two? ZX. Okay, if we went blue to pink, you have to go blue to pink here. So that would be ZX. ZX. Okay, and then this one, again, to figure out how you got from here to here, you're probably going to want to use a piece of patty paper. So make sure you put your origin on there. And remember, we're figuring out how to get from this one to this one. So make sure that you're doing the right one. Okay, so L, that's N, and that's M. You want to color in one corner just so you can make sure you line it up correctly. Which way do you think you're going to translate this? Think you could do a 180? Does it matter which way I turn? No, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go I'm getting there, 1, 2 turns. And is that it?
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. So that is a what?
Rotation.
180 degrees. Okay. And you don't have to write counterclockwise or clockwise because there's only one. Anyone have questions on how we did that? Not too bad, hopefully. Okay, homework is up on the board. Write it down. just in case. So you're working on page 525. You're doing numbers, and the numbers are kind of random because I'm only giving you ones that are actually important. I'm not making you do all the like random ones. 13, 18, and 19, okay? Number 18, if you can understand that one, that is going to be an extra credit. Okay, but all the other ones are required. Go ahead and get out your book and get to work, please.